Today, greetings and salutations. Welcome back, Mars energy. And I want to talk about the aspect of Mars squaring Venus. I'm personally experiencing this aspect, so it felt really called to talk about it. And it's really interesting because Mars and Venus both connect to desire, but they express the desires very differently. Mars is about action, drive, and pursuit. Venus is about attraction, value, and what we want to receive. So, I guess if you wanted to separate desire from Venus, you could give it the title of a want, right? But Venus is wants, Mars is desires, but technically they're all desires at the end of the day. But a want is something you want to receive. A desire has a little bit more passion, a little bit more energy behind it. That's why it feels more Martian. So when these two planets form a square, it can feel like there's a tension between what you want and how you're going after it. When Mars squares Venus, in astrology, this can create friction and pressure. It's not necessarily a negative, but it requires adjustment. So, with Mars squaring Venus, this can show up as acting in ways that don't align with your values, potentially, wanting something but feeling blocked to how to pursue it, tension in relationships, attraction mixed with frustration, desire that feels intense but complicated. Mars wants to move forward and Venus wants to attract and receive. And when they're not aligned, it can feel like you're moving, but not necessarily in the direction that actually fulfills you. So there will feel a little bit of, might not feel like tension all the times to you, but it's not going to feel as easy. There's going to be a little cloudiness, a little funkiness going on in there on your movements and your actions, even though you're looking to go after something that you're wanting to attract and receive, right? There's a pause, and that pause it's not a comfortable pause. It's not like it's more of a, mm, mm, mm. I don't know about that one. What is that? You guys, what is that? How do I feel right now? What is that? What this can feel like, sometimes it doesn't feel loud, but like I was talking about, it feels confusing. It might feel like I want this, but something about how I'm going after it doesn't feel right. Or I'm taking action, but it doesn't feel aligned with what I actually desire. And depending on what sign Mars is in, like right now, Mars is in Pisces, for example, in the real time that this video is happening, but it doesn't matter. It can be timeless, this video, because Mars will always be moving through. It will hit Pisces again, and it will move through other ones. Just insert the planet and the meaning into this point. But if it was in Pisces, Mars transiting, the energy can feel even more emotional, more internal, and more fluid. But that's also harder to direct. It's harder to take a internal energy, because think about Mars in general. When Mars is in water, it doesn't move as quickly as it wants to. It's slowed down a lot. So instead of that sharp push, it can feel like a pull in multiple directions, especially in Pisces, which is infinite, unconditional options, right? So the lesson of Mars squaring Venus, this aspect isn't here to stop you. It's here to ask you, are your actions aligned with your values? First question. Second question, are you pushing what you actually want or what you think you should do or want in that moment? That's a really good second question to ask yourself. And then, are you acting in your nature or someone else's? That's always a good question to ask. But if this square is happening, it is wonderful. And depending on which direction the square is happening, if Mars is squaring your natal Venus, or if Venus is squaring your natal Mars, that's going to also determine what's happening. And then you can look to the houses that it's in to see how it's going to potentially show up, or what experiences or people around you are going to bring this energy into play in your life. So instead of forcing action, this is a moment to pause and reflect. I know Mars energy likes to go, but when it is in a square with something else, we do want to pause just for a little bit to just get a full understanding of what's going on. You want to reconnect with what you actually desire, like what your actual desire is, not anything outside of you, what you actually desire, and adjust how you're taking that action. Because sometimes the issue isn't what you want, it's the way you're trying to get it. Mars squaring Venus asks you to bring these two in alignment, your desires and your action. When those match, the friction starts to ease. Mars square Venus can feel like tension, but the tension is trying to create clarity. It's showing you where something isn't fully aligned, and once you see that, you can start moving in the way that actually feels right to you. I think about myself right now and how I'm personally experiencing this, and the transiting Mars is in Pisces. It's at 11 degrees, so it's about to be in the center of this energy, right? And it's just fully in that energy. 11 degrees too is going to be more of an Aquarian emphasis on the energy, right? So there's a little bit more of a detachment from the emotional state of this Mars, this action energy, about desires and going after things in water. So it's already slowed down, it's already a little bit more slower moving in its action, and now it's squaring my natal Venus, which my natal Venus is in Gemini, in the middle of it too at 15 degrees. So I am feeling very much torn between how I like to communicate my desires, how I go after connecting with others, even just expressing myself, in how I take action on that, right? So thankfully, I have wonderful routines in my life that I set up for structure base, because where Mars is also transiting, Saturn is sitting right there in transit too for me right now. So that is pulling into this energy for me. But luckily, I have created really great structure for myself so that I have systems in place that no matter what I'm feeling energetically or physically, I could be sick as a dog, and these systems are in place that I can still do them. I made them so simple. So sometimes your systems need to be so simple that no matter where the energy goes, you can still accomplish them, right? So when you are in moments where there is a square, there's some tension, and you have to slow down and pause and reflect on what you really want, you can still accomplish what you want to do because you didn't overcomplicate it already from the start. Sometimes you need to simplify your life. And then as you continue to show up in that aspect or whatever structure you created, then you can expand the structure. You can expand what you're doing inside of that structure once you have already taught yourself and your nervous system and to know that you always show up in this way irregardless of anything. It's a process we have to build. I always think of it like a baby. If you think about how a baby learns how to walk, they always start with this little army crawl scoot, and not even before that, they're like just learning how to even roll their body over to their tummy, and then they're scooting, and then once they start scooting, they start squishing, their knees up, and then they start to crawl, and after they crawl, they learn to pull themselves up and stand and balance and then take a step, and then they're walking. So when you're learning something or you're teaching yourself a habit, the best way to do it is to make it simple. It's not about necessarily going slow, because your own pacing will show up as you continue to do this. Some people might go faster than others. Some people might go slower than others. That doesn't matter. But simplicity is the key. Start simple and then allow it to grow. Give yourself the grace of being simple in this life when it comes to creating a habit or learning something. Yes, be inspired by the people that are at maybe a pinnacle or a peak that is really inspiring you to achieve this, but know that they started somewhere too. And everyone's start is going to look different. Everyone's pacing is going to look different. But simplify it so you can actually take the action when the energy is being opposed by something else. Because if you're having a Venus and Mars square, What you want and your desires are literally being questioned and confronted by your actions. So it's time to ask yourself, do my actions align with what I want? And am I taking the action in the right way to actually serve what I want to achieve? That's the question that, in my mind, Mars square Venus asks. At least that's the question I'm feeling right now at most. And whenever I experience this aspect, this particular square, I tend to find this theme come up. So that's the beauty of astrology. You can look at it and start to recognize patterns in your own personal behavior and start to ask yourself questions in order to see if your behavior, your choices, and your patterns align with what you are trying to exist as. Remember, astrology is not a box. Okay? It's not something that's trying to tell you who you are. It is just trying to give you a language to express how you operate, maybe understand yourself more. It's up to you. If it aligns, amazing. If it doesn't, let it go. There are so many ways of learning thyself in this world. Pick your poison, pick your medicine. They both arrive at the same time. And it's just all about your perspective and how you want to view it. But just work with what works for you. So, if you want some help looking at your own Mars placement, let me know in the comments. Hit me up. I love to learn about these things. And if you want to know about how Mars potentially is aspecting and when your Mars is going to square your Venus, we can talk about it. Maybe it's happening at the same time and we can talk about our own personal experiences together. If not, let me know. Let me know what your Mars placement is in the comments. Let me know what your Venus placement is. And if you've noticed when your Mars is in aspect with another planet or this particular aspect. Until the next time, I love you. Like the video if you like this energy. Subscribe if you want more topics and themes about learning yourself and allowing yourself to just exist in your natural state, enhance that state, but being true to who you are, because your existence is the best gift that we all have here. I love you. See you later.